Hi, writers! In today's fiction narrative lesson, we are working on the skill of creating suspense. I know. You're waiting with anticipation to know what it is. And that's exactly what creating suspense does. When we write to create suspense, we make our reader want to know what happens in the story. We don't just want to tell them everything that happens in the very first paragraph. We want our reader to keep reading. Creating that sense of anticipation or waiting to find out what happens is how we create suspense in our writing. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Let's make sure you have all the materials you need for today's lesson before we jump right in. You're going to need your scissors and your glue. You're also going to need this student printable about plot that's going to end up in the resources section of our writing notebook. So make sure you have everything you need for this lesson today before we get started. If you're ready, then let's go ahead and jump right in. Today, our mentor text is going to be full of examples of created suspense. While I read today, see if you can identify those moments where the writer held back from telling us everything that happened, but made us want to keep reading. Our story today is called Tabitha and the Red Balloon. Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Tabitha. For Tabitha's 8th birthday, her mom gave her a large red balloon tied to a long white string. Right away, Tabitha loved the red balloon. She named the balloon Arnold and would not leave home without him. When her mother would take her to the park, Arnold would come with them. Tabitha enjoyed the way he tagged along behind her as she ran across the playground. She'd giggle as Arnold chased her down the slide and nuzzled her long brown hair when they got. To help us do this in our fiction writing, we are going to work on the plot of our story today. The plot is the path that your story follows. We already know that we have our problem and our solution. We've planned our characters, but let's look closely at all of the things that happen on the path our story follows. You'll see here that a lot of times we can represent plot with a roller coaster. Think about going up the hill with our rising action. The very tippy top is the climax, that moment of, oh, what's going to happen next? And then the falling action is what continues to happen during our story as it takes us towards our solution at the end. Making sure we have lots of details in our rising action and our falling action helps to make sure our reader feels that suspense as they're reading and they want to keep reading more. I'm going to show you the details I like to include when I am thinking about the plot of my story. First, I'm going to focus in on my rising action. This is the beginning of my fiction narrative. These are the things that I know that are happening to start my story out. These are details that I may have already included in my draft. Remember, since it's just a draft, we can always add more information, more details to that story. So I know that my rising action begins with Dominic finding the cat in the alley. And then he hides the cat in his room and takes care of it there. He's so excited when he finds the cat. Then his brother finds the cat and threatens to tell Mom. This will then bring me to the climax, that problem or the worst moment in the story. I know that moment is going to be when Mom finds out all about what Dominic's been doing in his bedroom. Now that you've seen how I plan my rising action and my climax, it's time for you to do the same. Your printable includes spots for all pieces of our plot. We have rising action, climax, falling action, and solution. All you need to focus on today is planning out your rising action and your climax. Remember, when I planned my rising action, I used numbers to show different events that happened. Lots of things can happen before you reach the climax of your story. And remember, the more detail you include in that rising action, the more suspense your reader can feel while they're reading. Your job today is to get this ready to go in the resources section of your writing notebook, and then fill out the rising action and climax sections for your story. If there's any details that you add here that then need to come over and make their way into the writing masterpiece section, Don't forget how to add your details here.